You're listening to the Primal Happiness Show, a podcast dedicated to helping you thrive in this crazy modern world. Every Tuesday, we explore the nature of how our minds really work, what exactly the human animal requires to thrive, and how we can live happier and more fulfilling lives. If you're new here and haven't yet taken our free class, then there's no better place to get a jump start on reclaiming your primal happiness. It's where we'll guide you step by step through our antidote to today's modern world. Simply head on over to primalhappiness.co/antidote to get the free class and discover how to thrive without having to move to a planet that's not so crazy as ours. But now, your host, Eliane Brook-Tyler.
Hello, my beautiful people. A huge warm welcome back to the show. In today's crazy modern world, men and women are living shallow, disconnected, and unfulfilling lives. So we created the path for those who are ready to reclaim their wildness and actualize their deepest gifts. And if you're a woman who is interested in using this time of rupture to discover more about yourself and to expand, then Unraveling the Body could be perfect for you. It's a crucible of wild awakening for women in which we unravel the mysteries, freedom, and gifts of your body, which is one of the most powerful portals to the soul. If you are feeling your body calling for that unraveling, we begin on the 13th of May, which is almost upon us. And you can check out all the juicy details now at primalhappiness.co/unravel. If you're feeling that call, I cannot wait to see you on that first day. And now on to this week's show. It's with my friend and fourth-time guest, Eliane Sainte-Marie, founder of Parenting for Wholeness, creator of the acclaimed Clean Parenting program, where she guides parents in experiencing the ease and harmony she promises is possible in families. Author of the book, Clean Parenting, The Peaceful Parent's Essential Handbook, and mother to 3 wonderful adult daughters. She's passionate about helping parents raise children who are whole, as well as helping them shed what's in their way of living from a place of wholeness. In this conversation, we spoke about how to manage life as parents with children at home in this time, the importance of taking a long-term perspective of our family's health and happiness, causing as little damage as possible, and how to create more love and harmony in these strange times. I'm so happy to have created this with Eliane. I believe it's going to be really hopeful and helpful to so many of us at this time, and maybe beyond that too. Let's jump in. Hello, Eliane. Welcome back.
Hello, Eliane.
It's not been long, has it?
Yeah, we keep doing this every few weeks.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Next installment of the Eliane and Eliane show.
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow. But the amazing thing is, I just find this delightful that we'd had this set up in the diary for, I don't know, maybe a month or so, planning to record on, I was going to say a completely different topic. It was still about children and parenting, but not the topic that we've now realised with the rupture of the coronavirus and everything's been created, specifically the impact on families, especially young children being at home, parents trying to juggle all the demands. We were like, oh my goodness, like that's where we need to go. That's the place to speak into. Yeah. So I love that we just like, that was almost like happened despite us, which is somehow like the magic that does always happen
really
between us. So
it was meant to be. Yeah, it's so precious to have relationships like that. It just feels magical. And
yeah, just like pure co-creation all the time. So we, as I was just saying, it's been something that I've been experiencing personally, but also seeing reflected in like so many of the relationships I've got around me, whether that be other school mums, whether it be friends, whether it be clients, whether it be like people on Facebook. Like I'm hearing over and over again this sense of like, oh my goodness, help. What's the answer here? Like, how the hell do we get through this time, particularly if you're also trying to juggle work at the same time. And I'm really noticing this sense of like desperation, like you see, like, I don't know, an email gets shared or a Facebook post gets shared from a kind of, school principal saying one thing, and then some other home ed parent saying another thing. And I really see almost this like us like grasping on, like, this is the answer, this is how we'll get through this period. And then it's kind of like, right, no, we're right over here. This is how, then it's all about kind of, this like really detailed timetable. That's how we'll get through this period. And really, and I haven't been immune to that, like I've definitely felt some of that pull too. And as I was just sharing with you, this has been a real opportunity for me to almost like put to the test all the work I've done, personally with how I parent, all of that's been really put to the test during this time. So it's been very much like where the rubber meets the road. And in general, I've been really delighted and feeling like, wow, there has been lots of grace and lots of love in this period. And I also really get it. I'm not immune to the struggles and that sense of kind of like, maybe there is an answer. Like, oh, maybe this is the one, maybe this is like, it's not been like completely outside of my like awareness, let's say. So I feel like this trying to offer listeners who are parents, who are in this sense of kind of like, where do I go? How do I make this work? How do I like create a juggle that actually bloody works? Like, how do we offer them something they can kind of ground themselves in more deeply? So the oracle now can speak. And save us all, Eliane.
I so admire. Say this. I know you shut down my brain now. Yeah, so I feel like one of the things that I can bring is that my children are all in their 20s, and I did homeschool them till they were 10. So, or one was 9. So I have a sense of the long-term perspective. So I feel like that's definitely, so one of the things that I want to bring to it is that, so taking the long-term perspective to me was often what allowed me to not get caught up in the details of the now, of trying to get the right thing happening in this moment. Like, it's not so much about the grade on this test. It's about what will serve them in the long-term perspective to be happy, well-equipped human beings. So I feel like that's one thing that I would so love for parents to think about is, look 10 years down the line. What could you have done right now that would have most supported your children to thrive, that would have most supported your family as a whole? So is it about absolutely keeping on track with whatever plan you came up with, whatever plan you found on Pinterest, whatever the teachers are telling you to do, which, as far as I know, nobody really knows what they're doing. Nobody really knows what children need.
No.
And, if you look at most school years, once you go back to school in the fall, you have to review what you did the year before anyway, because you tend to forget most everything. So this idea of staying on track, I would really hold that lightly, especially that everybody's going to be in the same boat. And if the thing that will most hinder everybody is stress. So anything that creates stress, if a child is stressed, they can't learn. So you can put in all this effort to get them to do their homework, and maybe they'll take it in enough so they can fill out the worksheet or take the quiz, but they're going to forget it anyway because they're not open, they're not receptive. So really, what will support you as a whole? And I think for some people, there can be an opportunity to be, I did see something show up on Facebook that was about talking about their coronavirus situation, like as a historical thing, 10 years down the line. And the parent, the child asking the parent what it was like. And then the child saying, well, or then an adult saying, well, what I remember is that's when we all got to spend all this time together. And that's when we were having meals together. And that's when we got closer as a family. Like, I have goosebumps saying that. I feel like it's a unique opportunity of what if? And I know not everybody has access to that. And a lot of people have a lot of stressors. And so I understand. I'm not trying to be Pollyanna here, but what if there's a way to use this to make it like, okay, we have this unique time that we'll never again have in our lives. So
my daughter, it's my son's just come down the path.
So I feel like this is illustrating some of the really unique challenges of the situation, which maybe leads me to the next point that I really wanted to make, which is that oftentimes all we have access to is to create the least amount of damage. So if we set as our goal to get things right or to have this high expectations, it's not even in the cards. Like for you, Eliane, it's not in the cards for you to do a normal day of work. And if you have that expectation, you're going to be stressed all the time, all the time, all the time. Whereas if your focus is, okay, let's see what can happen today and hold it lightly. And when the dogs run in because, or are barking because your son came home when he wasn't supposed to, and that if you can, you'd be like, okay, that's what's happening now. Like if you have the expectation of things being like normal or of things going according to plan, when you have children at home, it's guaranteed you're going to be miserable and you're going to make your children miserable. So this idea of being like,
I love that. I love that. Mm-hmm.
Just do the best that we can. And it's not giving up. It's creating space to roll with the punches.
Yeah, I love that so much. So a couple of things I want to pick up on what you said there. So the word you were using is kind of long-term perspective. And I think the way I see it is very similar. I just tend to use the word vision, but ultimately having that, being able to kind of elevate out of the moment and see something more, see what you're committed to, see what you're really here to create. And that's definitely been something that has continually helped me be, I'm not saying like fully graceful all the time, I'm human, but definitely more graceful with those ups and downs than I would have been. It's like I have that ability because I have a kind of like that vision or long-term perspective. You're saying I'm able to like recognize like, the moments where it feels rough, that isn't all there is. There is also bigger picture that we're co-creating here that I can kind of elevate and like look at like, okay, well, this is expected. There's going to be road bumps. Like no road is going to be just like smooth sailing, straight line. Like this is expected. It doesn't mean that vision's changed. And I think particularly, and this is what I love your invitation here, that this is an opportunity, I think, for us to really get in touch with what our vision is, because I think as a culture where we're almost like where we are rewarded for how much we can kind of consume a vision externally. It's like the vision's out there of what that's going to look like for our children or for our family. And that gets internalized as if it's our vision. And it actually never was. It starts to feel like it because we've been trained to believe, oh yes, of course, if my children, do really well at school and get great grades and then get a great job, like, of course, that's my vision. And it never was. It might be. I suspect it wouldn't be if we gave ourselves pause and actually looked inwards and like, this is an opportunity more than ever to like check in, like what is the vision? And I suspect for most parents, it probably is something very similar to what you said there. It's ultimately about creating, healthy, happy adults. That's really, like if we really look deeply It's not much more than that. But that's like the best thing in the world.
Yeah, like we were mentioning before, we started recording, how, like, for me, I start all of my programs, the first module is always creating an intention. And I actually recorded a little video on like 5 ways that you can use this time to create more connection in your family. And the first way is to just take time to create this vision of how would you like this time to go? Let's assume, however it is, whether it's, 3 weeks, 3 months, whatever, I have no idea. But like, how would you like that to go? And if you take the time to just really feel into it, just knowing your situation, knowing your family, like there's someone else's vision is not right for you. So it's really about what's true for you, given your financial situation, your specific circumstances, your children, like how could you navigate this time, or how could you have this time be as good as it could be for you? And then if you write that vision, and then you know what you're reaching for, and it's connected to what you want, to what's realistic for you, to what's true for you. So then it's doable, because you're not trying to achieve someone else's standards. And oftentimes, it was funny. So, like I said, sent out an email a few days ago, and I opened up like 5 free sessions, per week for people. And and I have people fill out a questionnaire that's pretty detailed about what their challenges are, what their obstacles are, what their vision is, where they want to be in a few months. And I get on this call yesterday with this woman, and she's like, well, just the fact of writing all of this out last night, I kind of resolved it all today. And that happens so often in my programs. Like both of my programs, and I'm going to talk about it because one of my parenting programs is a very simple program that's really effective in getting lots of results really fast. And I've cut the price in half, and I'm offering 3 times as many support calls because I feel like it's exactly what people need right now. And it is like the first, there's a little bit more, but the first module is on creating an intention. So just taking that time to, like, most people never ask themselves, what do you really want for your family? What do you really want for your children? What do you want your home life to feel like? And just the process of writing it down, it gives direction. And then
definitely.
And then the second module, I always ask, both in my simple and my really intensive program, write down all of your situations, all of your challenges. And oftentimes it's amazing how just the process of writing down their situations, like a third of them get resolved. Because once people see them in black and white, instead of having all this confusion going on in their heads all the time, once they just see it, most of the people that I work with are really wise, smart, knowledgeable people. So it's just a matter of getting their focus on the solution instead of just being on the worries, which is what all the mind thinks, what all the things about.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't agree more. It's so interesting. We've said this before, how much our work mirrors your work, in just the same way. Whether that be my one-to-one clients or the work I do with Wake 'em Wild Feminine, like it's so much about like getting clear, like what is it you actually want? Yeah. Like from there, you just get it.
And it's not
doesn't
so
mean
much,
it's easy. Doesn't mean it's fast necessarily.
Like it's not an intellectual walk.
It's just like,
it's really what do you yearn for? What's alive in you? What's your dream?
Totally.
Like where's your life at? And on that,
totally. All heart-led.
And then it's just about committing to achieving it and then finding the resources.
Yeah, totally. So a couple of things I took from what you've just said, and then I want to go to the next thing you said. So I think really what I'm feeling is the power of that kind of very long-term vision of, like 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when they're grown, what that looks like. And again, probably quite simple, because really what we really want for our children is quite simple. But then a vision for this time. Again, we don't know how long it's going to be, but we can work with that, like just for the next 3 months, our vision as a family, and I've done similar with my two children, and really involved them in that process. What is our vision for this time? And ours was around kind of, being loving, having fun, feeling relaxed. Like for us, that's kind of like the holy grail. If we can get through a day and know that we've been able to be kind of loving, fun and relaxed, like big tick in the box. Like anything else on top of that's a bonus. Like that's our vision for this time. So I love that. It really feels just really like common sense, actually, although as common sense often is, it's really rare. And then the next thing you said, what I loved,
and I kind of want to dive into that, if that.
Sure. Go, yeah.
I did homeschool, and I would say that in some of my last years, I was kind of doing all my own inner work, and I can't say that I provided a lot for my children. In fact, part of why they ended up going to school was because they were bored. So I was kind of a failure at homeschooling and providing proper, activities and socialization and all of that. So I could say that I failed at homeschooling, and that my daughters might have decided to continue homeschooling longer if I had been better at it. But what I was really good at was making sure that they felt really safe in being themselves. Creating an environment where they were free to be themselves, and where they could, for me, I come from a lot of trauma. So I think of it as where their nervous system could be calm. So where they could develop emotionally healthily, and where they were treated in a way that created a really healthy sense of self. My children or my daughters, who are all in their 20s now, they are so thriving. They all excelled in school, even though they had zero schooling until they were 10, like not a worksheet, not a workbook. It was pure unschooling. They all excelled academically, excelled at their work, have amazing relationships that their dad and I never managed to have, because they are healthy, because they are supported. They were supported in connecting with their own inner life, their own inner drive, and not having extra stuff put into it. So I feel like I was really good at staying out of the way and just giving them the water and the sun that they needed. And that's it. And then
oh my goodness, right. Yeah. Don't go on to another topic yet, Eliane, because I love this. Can I stop you there for a moment? So I want to kind of keep track of some of these things. I think they're all such big points in their own right. So I want to come back to the thing you said after we were talking about vision, before we went back to talk about vision, which was around kind of lowering the expectations. But let's just head to where you're talking about here, because I love this. So this, everything you're saying, it really resonates with me. I've been a long term, despite the fact my children do go to school, in my heart, I've always considered myself an unschooler. Like it's totally makes, like I've got zero like theoretical issues with it. Like as far as I'm concerned, it makes complete sense why your girls have ended up these beautiful, thriving adults. Like that totally makes sense to me. It just happens for all sorts of reasons that we haven't chosen to do that yet as a family. Whether we ever will, I don't know. But for me, this period has given us that opportunity to kind of like create some space where they can feel into that. I mean, obviously I support them with that outside of school anyway, but what you're describing there, that chance to really feel into who they are, what they're passionate about, what they're curious about. This has been like, oh, wow. They now get this. Like this is just such a golden opportunity. And I think, even if you're not someone like me who kind of like, I've got this inner unschooler, even if you haven't got that, like, wow, what an opportunity for your children to get this chance to be supported in feeling into who they are, not having to be told who they are constantly, like, oh, you must do this maths and you must do this science and you must do this French, because why? Like, find out what you want. And it's been just this opportunity to see what that is for them. It's been mind-blowing. My daughter she's decided to turn herself into a magician. She's been teaching herself. Like, we bought her a magic kit. We said we would support either with kind of whatever projects or whatever they wanted, like get resources. And she said, I'm going to teach myself magic. So we bought her a magic kit, and she's been like learning from the book, watching YouTube videos. She's now got like quite a repertoire already. So I was like, we're only 3 weeks in. She's got this like amazing repertoire of tricks. So, like, I don't know how she's doing them. Like I always say, don't tell me, but they are like brilliant, absolutely flawless. And I just think, like, wow, that may have never, like, who knows whether that will lead on to anything, whether it'll be a kind of like one-off passion that dies. I don't know. I don't care. But like, to think like, she may never have just like discovered that passion and that love of magic tricks if it hadn't been for this period. Just like, wow, what an opportunity.
And another thing that's coming to me is that I think, to me, it's not about teaching children facts. It's about teaching them how to think for themselves, how to, I don't even know how to put it in a word. Like, in some ways, I feel like I was a very lazy parent. So, if they were like, Mom, can I do this? I'd be like, well, you can, but right now I'm busy doing this. So how can you figure it out? Like, teaching them to think for themselves, teaching them or helping them find their way to become competent on their own. And I think I might have mentioned that on another call that you and I don't know, we've done so many interviews now, but there's this example of, like, I feel like all 3 of my children are very street smart. You can put them in a new situation, and they know how to find their way with it. Like, all of them did completely fine when they went to college. Not because they knew facts, because they knew how to take care of their own lives. They were trusted to. So I feel like those are the things that children don't learn so much in school. Like, there's an opportunity now to kind of trust them and encourage them to figure out, how do you want to interact in life? How do you want to go about doing your homework? What does feel right to you in terms of this? And, letting them experiment in the kitchen. Like, so sometimes it's being lazy, but sometimes it's also being committed enough. So for me, in a way, I was lazy, but because I had the long-term perspective, I knew that the way that I will get them to be able to make their own food is, at first, I need to be willing to deal with all the messes and to really help them. So, just giving them enough that they need so that then they can go on their own, and that teaching them how to, I keep just saying the same thing. I feel like I don't have access to the right concept, but I guess I'm going to give this example of when my daughter was just learning to drive or starting to drive. So there were 4 16-year-olds in the car, and they got a flat tire. So it was like 2 boys, football players. I mean, rugby, American football players, and then 2 girls. So here's my little Cassandra. I'm like, okay, we have a flat tire. Okay, I know there's a jack. There's a spare tire in the trunk. She opens the trunk. She finds where the tire is. She finds the jack. She reads the instructions. She does it. Everybody is just watching because they're used to just being told what to do. My daughter, and all of my daughters are like that. They have different strengths and different abilities, but they're all like, you put them in a new situation, and they're like, okay, here's the situation. Here's what we need. Here's where we need to get to. How do we do that? Like, teaching children that.
Oh my goodness. Right. Stop, Eliane. Stop. Because we've got to, like, this point is another like massive one. So I think sometimes, like, you just spit so much gold, and it's just like, stop. Like, I don't want to lose that one and that.
Well, we can link at least the other 2 interviews we've done, because I know those were like.
Yes. So I was about to say that. So firstly, there's really something in here around this is a golden opportunity, not just to allow them to kind of follow their own passions, interests, discover who they are, but actually learn something that's really valuable, which is how to learn, how to think, how to be self-directed. And I think your example where for your girls, that was like, 9 or 10 years of being that way, and then starting school and being totally well equipped to kind of throw themselves into the education system. For many of our children now, it might be, I don't know, let's just say 3 months, 6 months, who knows how long it's going to be. But given yours had those 10 years of not really learning this kind of academic stuff, but we're totally equipped to dive in, for our children to have, whatever it might be, 3 months to learn this way of being, for thinking for themselves and then re-entering the school system, like, wow, they're going to be, so much better off for having the opportunity to do that.
And I mean, to me, so I do have a little audio. I guess I can link that on my reasons for unschooling my daughter. So for me, it was really unschooling. I mean, obviously, if I said I hadn't, they hadn't done any academic work until they were 10. And one of them, my brain just shut down for 1 second. I lost the connection. Oh, one of them is, it's like this idea that if you don't learn things within a certain time frame, that the opportunity is lost. Like that it's hard to learn stuff. That is bullshit. That is bullshit. That is bullshit. That is bullshit. Because when you're passionate about something, you figure out how to learn it, and you learn it so fast. I mean, I didn't speak English till I was 15. Totally. Can you tell? Like most people can't tell. So that missed window of opportunity, that like this urgency to learn something by a certain age. Like, no, most people don't know that I didn't speak English. And I have I'll definitely link my audio on my reasons for unschooling, because I think if some of this, if you're like open to hearing about, is it possible that maybe I can drop a lot of that education piece? Oh, imagine, I'm not saying that everybody can do it, but imagine if you just drop the homework thing. If you just drop the pressure of deciding what your children should learn and deciding what they should do, how differently that time would go. And maybe that little audio can inspire you. And I can tell you that for me, one of the things, so I was that straight A student, and I had this, so I graduated high school at 16. I worked, I went on, I was in the workforce till I was 22. Then I went back to school when I moved to the US. And I had this class where we had a quiz every week. So it was twice a week on Wednesday and Mondays was the class. And I had perfect 4.0 GPA. I would study for the quiz 10 minutes before the class. So I study for the quiz and the teacher doesn't show up. So then the next week, I figure I've already studied for the quiz. I don't need to do it. I failed the quiz. So I realized all I was good at, I knew how to take tests. I knew how to store information in my short-term memory just long enough for the test. And then I forgot it. So what's the purpose of doing all of this work? Oh, and I always thought I have no memory whatsoever. I cannot retain facts at all. Then I had my daughter and I started reading about parenting. And I remember this moment where I was at a LHLE meeting, and I think I was kind of giving a presentation on a book that I had just read. And I'm like, yeah, so in this book, it's about 2/3 of the way. It's on the page on the right, and he talks about blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, wait a second. And then I realized, no, it's that I wasn't interested. It wasn't relevant to my life. I cannot retain what's not relevant. But holy cow, when I'm interested in something, I still remember where in the book on the page was the, from, and we're talking about the mid-90s. So this idea of cramming information in them, that's not what's going to serve them later in life. And for me, even though I was a straight A student, I was a dropout. I could not it killed my love of learning. So what?
Yeah. Wow. Okay, stop, Eliane. Stop. Hold your horses. So, wow, so much. So I think because of, in interest of time, I'm just like, I love everything you're saying. I think being able to link off to all of that around unschooling, I think, would be really valuable. And I really want to talk for a moment to some of the things I'm seeing come up that are kind of like objections that are going to get in the way of that. And I've already started hearing people talk about things like this. So one, which I think we really went into deep in our last episode together, which is a lot of parents saying like, oh my goodness, but they're just, it left their own devices. They're just on electronics all the time. That can't be good for them, blah, blah, blah. So rather than us try and do like that, clearly is something that's coming up. It's something that needs to be addressed. Go listen to the last episode that we did together. I'll make sure it's linked on the show notes because we totally, like, everything we said there is 100% relevant to this time. Absolutely. So that's, I think, really, really, really in conjunction, because this probably won't work if this whole time's just filled with, okay, they can do whatever they want, and that all just gets completely filled up with technology. Like, that's probably not going to serve. So just without going into a big one, I think go listen to that episode. That will really serve anyone that's got those concerns.
I'm going to send in the show notes. So when this started a few weeks ago, my oldest daughter and I recorded a video to inspire parents. And it's so chock full of information too that can really help you guys. And it's her experience growing up and how it's applied to her life. So I think it's very, I think can be really encouraging to watch because she's so articulate. It's so obvious, the impact on her. And she has so much wisdom about it from the child's perspective. So we'll have that would be a great reason.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Lovely. And then the other objection, struggle that I keep hearing, and I've had some of this myself, is just, I think because of what I do for a living, because of all the work I've done, it isn't affecting me quite as much, but is this constant tidal wave of emails and expectations coming from the school. So even if, like I am, I'm just like, you know what, first and foremost, I want us to feel good in our systems. Like, I want this to be an experience that it feels good to us. Like, that comes first. Anything else is just like way down the list. And so, but then I'll get an email from the school. I had two chasing me at the end of, like, we're on the Easter holidays, and at the end of the kind of school term, half term, whatever it is, I got two emails chasing on two bits of work that my son was meant to have submitted, and we haven't, because we've just been doing our own thing. And I'm human. It's not like I don't get any response. I notice, like, I get a bit triggered by that and kind of like, like, is he going to fall behind? Are we going to get judged? Should I make him do that? And then I'm able to, like, find my way back to my center and kind of like, know what I'm really committed to. And I'm all good on that. I know for many parents, like, that's going to be much more of a challenge to find their way back to from there. Like, it's kind of, and I hear the conversations like, oh my goodness, like, I've got another email. I can't keep on top of it. We're failing. And so I think if we can speak directly to that, because I think everything we're talking about is gorgeous if we can kind of like shut out or somehow handle the weight of expectation coming in from school.
I know it's so hard to shut out the world and the doubts. I know for me, they never shut out. Like, I don't know if I mentioned on one of the calls, but I remember, so my middle daughter, Audrey, was high school valedictorian. And I remember the day that when she texted me, I remember I sobbed for hours after. And the sobbing was about, even though I was such a diehard about everything that I did, and I wrote about it. And I think I had already started parenting for wholeness back then. Like, I was so more than convinced about this parenting style and unschooling the sobbing was still about all the doubts that I had for 20 some years, that it was like a release, because it was like this confirmation that I was on track, that I had done the right thing.
Yeah.
So my point to that is that I don't know how you can not feel the weight of that. So I think, unfortunately, that might be a tension that you have to accept, and accept that even if you feel the tension, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It's just the weight of living in the society that's not like homogenous. It's not like when we lived in tribes where everybody lived the same way. All these different expectations, all the like, that's the cost of the world that we live in. Given that, I think it's important to just kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, get clear on what is your intention and what will serve your family. And if you can really root in that. So I'm remembering an example where, so my husband and I were divorced by that point, had been divorced probably easily 10 years. And we had the parent-teacher conference for our youngest daughter, who was, I don't know, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. So I don't know exactly what age, 10, 11, 12. And they told us that there was this new county requirement where children were not allowed to miss more than a certain number of days, or they needed a doctor's note for, I don't know, it was something to that effect, like some new rule. And Mike and I had not talked to each other. I mean, we have a good relationship, but it's not, but both of us, our reaction to that was, well, if we can't, that's not how we parent. If we believe that a family vacation is better for our children, we will take the vacation. And if we think our child needs to stay home one day because that's what they need for their sanity, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're committed to as parents. And if it can't work in the school, we're going to go to a different school. I mean, I don't know what we said what, but we were both. And it was so cool because here we're divorced and we have disagreements on stuff, but both of us were so clear on that. We weren't defensive. It was just, we were in our truth. This is what we believe in. Yes, I understand the school has rules, but we are the parents. We will do what's right for our child. And the teacher, I don't know what she did exactly, but she was like, okay. And this was the 3rd child in the school system, and they obviously are all thriving, like you can't argue with success, as as they say. They saw the results of how our children were. And they weren't truants, even though we kept getting truancy letters because we would let them take days off if they needed them. And so I feel like, and I don't know, that might be hard to do that. But if you can get to this place of just really being in truth with yourself and being so committed to your child and so committed to the long-term well-being and so committed to the well-being of your family in this time, and take what the schools say with a grain of salt, and just maybe a grain of thought too. But because ultimately you're in charge of your children. You're in charge of their well-being. And, school, they can make it up somehow. And who knows what's going to happen? Those teachers who are pressuring you today might 3 months down the line be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that we did that. And that was horrible. And that caused so much damage. And if you're the parent who was like, you know what, I'm going to prioritize the sanity and the sense of self and the sense of connection, and not us becoming all at war and hating this time and just, struggling through each day and everything is pulling teeth. And instead you're like, no, this is what is true for us. This is what is right for us. And we will fight. I guess that's one thing that I did with my kids. I freaking fought. I could not fight for myself to save my life. But boy, did I fight for my children's well-being. And I was so afraid of confrontation, but nobody would make me do something that I didn't believe was right for my kids. Nobody. So make it that, like, become a fighter for your children and for your family and for your family's well-being and sanity. Facts, grades, whatever,
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. It's so funny because, and I guess ultimately that is just everything comes back to this, like what you're saying here. I feel in one way or another, I allude to on every show I do, which is just like how we create the life we want is the same, whatever the thing is, having a vision, recognizing there'll be challenges too, that we'll have fears come up, we'll get triggered, we'll get distracted, we'll kind of want to get caught up in like, oh my goodness, no, I don't want that. And to be able to then like, okay, that's true. People are going to have views to the contrary. People are going to be doing whatever they're doing. I'm going to have all this come up in me like, oh my goodness, that makes me a bad parent, or people are going to judge me. All of that's going to be the case. And I'm committed to my vision. And like, ultimately, it doesn't matter what the topic is. Like, that is like how life works. Like, that's how we create the life we actually want.
Yeah. And really, I mean, if parents are listening here, like I would so encourage you to do my quick start program. And trust me, it's so cheap. It's not because I'm making a lot of money. I mean, it's whatever, $99 or something, but you will get like a step-by-step way of creating that vision, writing all your challenges, and then like a really quick and effective way of working through them. And then I'm offering, and there's a Facebook group with 3 amazing coaches who will comment on every one of your posts and help you kind of get clear. And then you get monthly group calls with me where we can talk this way about whatever you're going through, and I can guide you through it. I'm committed to doing them every month. Usually I just do 4 a year, but every month until the end of this. And I feel like it's just such a easy and like cheap way of getting loads of support and a step-by-step systematic way of getting you there.
Brilliant. Right. Give me the URL for that.
So if they just go to my website, coachingforwholeness.com, and then they click on programs, and it's the quick start program. But we'll put it a link in the notes
I'll make sure
I'll make sure to include it. But I feel like that program that usually I never even advertise, but it's so like the thing for these times. And a lot of the moms in my Facebook group are experienced homeschoolers too. So you can get a lot of insight from that, from people who come fully from my perspective.
Yeah.
If you're ready.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Is there anything else that you would like to leave listeners with, Eliane, that we've not covered?
I know you had mentioned before, like a couple quick tips if you just want to hold on to one thing. And out of all of my work, when I think of if there's one thing to focus on, like if there's one thing that you could, I don't know, post all over your house, it's the idea of being on the same team. So whenever anything comes up with your child, either they're doing something you don't like or you want it, there's something that you need from them, ask yourself, how can I come at this from a place of being on the same team, where it's not a power struggle of me against them and me trying to convince them, but just, okay, this is what's going on. This is what you're feeling. This is what you want. This is what's going on from my end. This is what I need. This is how it's impacting me. How can we work together so we're both happy with what we come up with? I feel like there's one mindset in parenting. Like if you just focus on developing that one approach, it can completely transform your life with your children. And my program is really like all about doing that. So really my work is all about helping you find for yourself what will work for each of your individual children, what will work for you. Like there's no answers. It's really guiding you to find the truth for yourself so that you can consistently show up with your children. I don't even say parent. Yes, continually parent in alignment with your values, but it's really just show up with your children in a way that aligns with you, not with me, not with Eliane, with you, like what's right for you, for your family. And that's what that program is designed to help you do. And I just keep wanting to push it because I know how much difference it's going to make. Like I have a woman who just started it recently, and she said she emails me and she was talking to me about Dancing with the Stars. She's like, that's the best program we have in Germany, Dancing with the Stars. And she was talking about it. Then a few days later, she emails me. She's like, oh my God, Eliane, I'm so loving this program. First of all, I'm kicking myself for not doing it 5 years ago when you first created it. And two, she's like, I look forward to each new module like I do to each new episode of Dancing with the Stars. Like, that's how much she's loving it.
I love
that. I'm not saying it because I'm gorgeous. Like, I just really works.
No.
Well, it works for people who resonate with this approach. I mean, you have to, resonate with this for it to work. But
No, I evangelize away because I think right now we need that. And I felt very similarly about my own work where I think initially there can be this sense of like, oh my goodness, who am I to be, talking about my business offerings at a time like this? But it's like, hey, if they're actually going to help, if they're going to allow people to have a better experience of this time, like, oh my goodness, like it's not a crime, but it almost feels like a crime not to talk about it.
I mean, I know for me, and that's the thing about my programs that many people have said is that I have a way of getting results. I think because I'm such a business, whatever, and my left brain is very developed. So everything had to be very effective and very efficient. So there's a way that the programs are created that they really get results and they get results fast. So it's not just like reading articles or reading books. It's nothing like that.
Yeah, no, I think it sounds absolutely perfect. So, wow, I feel like we did it. We've done it. We've covered it. We've got there.
Why don't we do it? I feel like it's so like we have all kinds of, I don't know what, supporting us in the magic that keeps getting created between the two of us. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I feel really excited to put this one out because I just feel like it's just what everyone needs right now. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I don't even have words. I love you so much.
Thank you.
I love this magic.
I love you too. So another brilliant show with Eliane, and so timely and practical too. Here are my takeaways. Take a long-term perspective of your children holistically. Hold staying on track lightly. If they're stressed and they just can't learn. Create a short-term vision for what's important to you during this time. What's your goal here? Be realistic. It may need to be looser than you choose at other times. This is an incredible chance for them to be supported in discovering who they are, what they love, what they're interested in, and really for them to learn how to learn and think for themselves. And ultimately, it's simple, but sometimes really hard. Tell the truth and parent from love instead of from fear. If you'd like to get the notes and links for everything we spoke about this week, hop on over to the show notes at primalhappiness.co/episode 279. And women, if you're feeling your body calling for an unraveling in a beautiful and safe space, we begin on the 13th of May, so not long now. Go check out all the juicy details at primalhappiness.co/unravel. If you don't want to miss out next week's episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, or your Android or iOS app of choice and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll get each episode delivered straight to your device as soon as it's released. Thank you so much for listening. You've been wonderful. Catch you again next Tuesday.